other somewhat games of the week here. Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are favored by 3.5. This is where Vegas knows. I mean, you said, hey, the power rankings, people didn't overreact to the Eagles. Vegas is not allowed to overreact, right? They can't be like, oh, the Bengals are terrible now. Ravens by 6, right? History matters. And so I'm still not in overreaction territory for the Bengals. I wasn't in week 1 last year either, and they still lost in week 2, but eventually they figured it out. So I don't know if they're going to figure it out right now, but Cincinnati's favored by 3.5 over the Ravens. Ravens looked good in week 1. Bengals didn't, but that's the nature of football here.
Yeah, shouldn't be a rain game, hopefully, and that changes everything.
Rain game, and then Ravens were at home, Bengals were on the road. That flips. Like, all that stuff matters in this discussion. Here's the other thing I'll cite that I've cited many times over the last couple of years. The most impressive thing about Zach Taylor is bouncing back from bad games. They've had bad games in the past. I expect them to bounce back. That could kill a team, having those types of demoralizing losses, and we haven't seen it from Cincinnati for 2 straight years.
Yeah, I will say about one thing that seems to be strange about the Bengals and Zach Taylor and all that kind of stuff is, you know, a lot of teams spend, like the sort of stat that Andy Reid with extra time is always insane. Now he lost, so it's not that insane. But a lot of these guys where you're like, oh, they had 9 months to work on this, and look what they broke out in week 1, all this creativity, all these changes, all these tweaks, blah, blah, blah. The Bengals offense seems to get more vanilla, like the longer they have to work on it. They come out early every season and run this, like the offense that Zach Taylor arrived in Cincinnati with, as opposed to any new wrinkles, any extra layer of creativity, oh, look, here's the new change in the Miami offense with Mike McDaniel. Teams are going to have to go away into the lab and figure out how to stop this. The Bengals, it's like this is the step 1. I don't know if this is just an approach of the way installs work with Cincinnati and Zach Taylor, like he specifically tries to get all the fundamentals done and then like over the course of the year maybe builds and adds bells and whistles to this thing. But I wonder if it does leave them vulnerable to these slow starts where they're just behind where everybody else is in terms of adding elements to the offense. And I think that was an issue in week 1. Now, look, their offensive line got wrecked by the Browns as well, so that didn't help. But you know, the sort of disgust that JT O'Sullivan had over the Bears offense, and that is a whole different world. But the Bengals offense had a real lack of creativity and putting players in a position to win, as opposed to just going out there and saying, go and win.
I was looking up RPOs the other day, too. I think they had the second highest percentage of RPOs last week. And that's not like against your point. I don't think that's some special level of creativity by the Bengals. I actually think that's not playing to their strengths whatsoever. That's just, I mean, whatever. It's a run play where you can pass it, fine. But their strength is in those playmakers that can make plays down the field. And sure, T. Higgins was getting beat up on the outside by the Browns corners, and they were real physical. But you got to keep giving T. Higgins opportunities. You have to keep giving Jamar Chase opportunities. I don't want a horizontal pass game if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals. You want to figure out a way to create the vertical passing attack that has been so special, right? Joe Burrow's downfield accuracy. And I see the chat's upset that we mentioned rain game again, but it actually matters. Like, if you can't grip the ball and throw it, you're not going to throw the ball down the field, so you have to adjust a little bit. So Burrow's coming off a terrible game, but we have way more information on Joe Burrow. Like, if he was a rookie, we'd say, oh, no, he might never be good. But he's not a rookie. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league the last couple of years, so he'll be better this week in Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do have very little concern about the Bengals long term. Now, I might still have concern about them this week.
This week, yeah.
I mean, look, I think like week 1, one of my takeaways, I was more impressed by San Francisco than I was worried about Pittsburgh. I think the Bengals-Browns game, I think that spoke more to the Browns defense is real and is a complete night and day game change from a year ago, as opposed to, real problems in Cincinnati. This is going to be an issue. I still think the Bengals offense is going to be fine. They just ran up against a very, very difficult looking defense to deal with.
One thing to keep an eye on, Jonah Williams, we mentioned his move from left to right tackle, basically in year 5 of his career. Those are the risky ones. He didn't look good in week 1. He didn't look good last year, but there were reasons Jonah Williams didn't look good last year.
He had a knee injury for the majority of last year.
He was playing through injury last year.
Yeah.
So, but the move from left to right tackle, like we saw Penei Sewell take 7 weeks to actually look good at right tackle after he made the move. And he looked horrible early on. So that might be one of those things that just takes a little bit of time for the offensive line to mesh for Cincinnati. And then the Ravens, Odafe Owe had 7 pressures, I think, the other day. David Ajabo had the strip sack. Some of those Ravens young rushers, they look good. It was against a bad Texans offensive line, but can they do it again this week?
The biggest thing, this is another one where Baltimore came out of that week 1 game with a pretty extensive injury list, laundry list of guys. So Ronnie Stanley, with his, a knee injury for him, he's probably out. Marlon Humphrey was injured with a foot injury. Tyler Linderbaum, so the 2 offensive linemen, he, I think, had an ankle injury. All 3 of those guys might miss the game. Certainly, I think Stanley is expected to, and that's a big blow on the offensive line. So Baltimore, and obviously J.K. Dobbins is done with an Achilles injury.
It was a rough week.
Right, and Marcus Williams, by the way.
So Marcus Williams with the biceps, right?
That's potentially 5 starters that are out.
Yeah, so it's the look, I had concerns with the Ravens secondary, even with Marlon Humphrey, but with Ronald Darby, year 9 in his career, Brandon Stevens, I mean, they've got some questions there. I think the Bengals have their success on the outside and look much better this week. Baltimore was interesting because they didn't have to do a whole lot offensively. Lamar put the ball on the turf a couple times. I don't think we got a whole lot of answers about, hey, how good is this new offense, other than they got Zay Flowers in space a bunch, and he looked dynamic. Mm-hmm. So be keeping an eye on that. But I think Baltimore is just too banged up for this one. Where are you going? It's Bengals by 3.5.
One thing that was interesting, by the way, all the talk heading into the season was Baltimore was going to spread the ball much more. They were going to go 11 personnel. They were going to look much more like the Louisville offense in college. They didn't. I mean, they were 28th in 11 personnel usage this week 1. They had 28 out of 64 snaps on offense, including no plays and stuff, were 11 personnel. It's more than they used to be with the million tight end formations, but it's not like they didn't jump up to the average in the NFL is 60%. So they didn't even get anywhere near average, let alone one of the more 11 personnel happy teams in the league. That's an interesting development in terms of where this offense is going to go, or how it's trying to maybe split the difference between what Monken maybe wants to run and the old offense. They're not going from one extreme to the other. They're kind of charting a middle course.
Yeah, I want to see how that moves throughout the year too, because they were in control of a lot of that game against Houston.
Sure.
So how much of that is the game flow and everything? So 3.5, Sam. Where you going? We got it at 3 on the screen here. You saw it at 3.5.
I saw it at 3.5, but these things move.
Let's use the screen. Let's
say use 3.
Yeah, let's use 3 because I'm taking Cincinnati.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll take what's on the screen.
I'm also taking Cincinnati. Not so much. I think Cincinnati might struggle again this week, but I think Baltimore's pretty banged up, and that could cost them.